Forbes, Trump's TikTok deal seems like a repackaged version of the one the Biden White House rejected. After years of unsuccessful negotiations, TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, appears to have finally found a White House it can sweet-talk. The tech giant seems poised to retain control over a number of TikTok's core business functions in the US, including its advertising, e-commerce, and recommendations systems, despite an executive order signed by Trump saying that, quote, TikTok's United States application will be operated by a newly established joint venture based in the United States. The Chinese firm will also retain approximately 50% of the new US TikTok's revenue through a set of revenue-sharing agreements between the new US TikTok entity and its former parent. Trump's executive order declares that the new TikTok will have, quote, no operational relationship with ByteDance, despite reporting showing that the deal will enable ByteDance's continued control over advertising and e-commerce, and despite revenue-sharing agreements that will allow ByteDance to continue to own, control, and profit from TikTok's recommendations algorithm. Much of the Trump TikTok plan recalls a draft agreement that ByteDance negotiated with the Biden administration in 2022, and which Forbes exclusively reported in 2023. In that agreement, too, the Chinese parent company would have retained visibility into, and in some cases control over, key functions at the new US entity, including decisions about budgeting, asset sales, debt, and bankruptcy. But even in the draft agreement that the Biden administration rejected, ByteDance would have ceded some control over TikTok's US advertising and e-commerce arms to the new US TikTok entity. Known as Project Texas, the earlier ByteDance proposal centered around the creation of a new US legal entity known as TikTok US Data Services, or USDS. That entity, ByteDance said, would be physically and technologically separated from the rest of TikTok and ByteDance, and its data would be sequestered away from ByteDance in a US data center managed by Oracle. It appears that the so-called sale of limited TikTok assets that make up the proposed Trump deal may be little more than a sale of TikTok USDS. Project Texas was a centerpiece of TikTok CEO Shou-Zi Chew's testimony to the House Energy and Commerce Committee in 2023. But the Biden administration ultimately didn't buy it. A senior Biden administration official told Congress nearly a year after Chew's testimony that the proposal, quote, would still allow TikTok's algorithm, source code, and software development to remain in key measures in China, and it would allow Chinese employees and ByteDance employees to continue to have influence over TikTok's operations. Congress ultimately agreed. Nearly a month after the official's testimony, it passed a law requiring TikTok to be sold or banned. The law said specifically that a new post-sale TikTok could not have any, quote, operational relationship with ByteDance, a reference to and rejection of Project Texas's premise. The primary differences between Project Texas and Trump's sale may be semantic. Since the law's passage, lobbyists at ByteDance and its allies have had more than a year to repackage the proposal's terms as a, quote, sale that might meet the letter, if not the intent, of Congress's law. Casting the arrangement as a, quote, sale of US TikTok, rather than a spin-off or a limited set of TikTok's US functions, gives the impression of a more comprehensive deal than the actual reported contract terms may deserve. ByteDance's continued control of advertising on TikTok could be particularly concerning from a national security perspective. A Reuters report published in late September said that a, quote, division that will continue to be wholly owned by ByteDance will control US TikTok's revenue-generating business operations, such as e-commerce and advertising. In 2023, Forbes reported that Chinese state media organizations had run ads on TikTok, reaching millions of Europeans with CCP propaganda. If ByteDance does retain control over TikTok's US advertising, it might use that control to serve CCP propaganda to US TikTok users, too.